it's affected the most, I believe.
Yeah, I mean, you did a fantastic job at sort of breaking down just how important vitamin B1 is when it comes to supporting overall energy metabolism and ATP production. But I sort of want to segment into, and this is coming from both personal experience and people that have recommended vitamin B1 too, is that when you take vitamin B1 on its own versus in a B complex, I personally have noticed a clear-cut day and night difference. So I want to explore more about why is it that vitamin B1 on its own subjectively may feel completely different to like a B complex.
Okay, so I just want to ask a question. When you're taking B1 on its own, is that in a different dose to a B complex? Is that a higher dose that you're taking?
I would say it's almost on par, between 50 to 100 milligrams of thiamine HCl.
Okay, I mean, look, that's a very good question. That's a very good question. And I'm not entirely sure whether the answer to that has been fleshed out. What I would say is that essentially, we have to look at the B vitamins as being in a complex. So they all work together. They work in tandem. So for instance, you think of how cells make energy is essentially, it's like lots of different cogs, multiple cogs. And that when you drive the one cog, what can happen is that is going to affect the other cogs, right? Lots of different cycles upon cycles within cycles. And so when you give one individual nutrient, what you're doing is you think these nutrients are cofactors for enzymes, okay? Enzymes are like the cogs. And so when you give one nutrient, what you're doing is you're increasing the activity of those processes which need that nutrient specifically. So I'll give you an example. When you take B1, you are going to be specifically increasing the activity of the enzymes, 1 pyruvate dehydrogenase, 2 alpha ketoglutarate dehydrogenase, and 3 branched chain ketoacid dehydrogenase. There's going to be a couple of others, transketolase involved as well. But again, we don't need to get in too much into the biochemistry. But basically, those are like lots of different cogs. Okay? Yeah. However, there are also many other enzymes involved in energy metabolism which do not need B1. They don't require B1. Okay, so when you give one nutrient in particular, what you're doing is you're driving the one process and you can increase the need for the other process. Alternatively, if the other cycles or the other cogs are running efficiently, but it's just the B1 dependent cogs which are slowing behind, then taking B1, how to say this? Right, when you give one nutrient, what you're either doing is you're increasing the need for the other nutrients, or you're bringing those processes back into some kind of equilibrium, okay? So for some people, right, for instance, if they are perfectly fine on B2, B6, B12, folate, biotin, and yet they're just low in B1, then taking B1 by itself might allow the cells to reach some kind of some semblance of normality, right? Because if all of the B1 dependent processes were lagging behind, when you take extra B1, that's going to kind of come up to speed with the rest of the processes. Okay. Right. However, when you take a complex, any B vitamin is going to increase the activity of the enzymes that it's used in. So you imagine taking a B complex. If your thiamine dependent processes are slightly lagging behind, but then all of the other processes are not, which require the other Bs, when you take a B complex, you're increasing everything. So that's not necessary. It's just bringing it to a higher level. It's not necessarily addressing the initial deficit and bringing the B1 dependent processes back into, kind of on the same level as the others, if that makes sense. That's highly theoretical. That is the only possible thing that I can think to explain why some people respond better to taking B1 by its own rather than in a complex. I think that what's happening when they're taking B1 by its own is it's helping to bring the other things back kind of in line with the rest of the other processes inside the cell. But I'm not sure. That's highly theoretical. Take it for what it's worth.
Yeah. Okay, well, it makes sense to me. I mean, I understand that when you're talking about the different systems and how maybe sort of leveling up one, but then the other cogs are sort of lagging behind. But Elliot, I want to sort of discuss more about how B1 affects cognition and the brain, because I talk about nootropics and enhancing brain function quite a lot. I explore many of the,